Hello everyone and welcome back to another instalment of the Warwick F1 Show. The summer break has firmly set in. We are on the long await to Zandvoort in a few weeks' time, but also something that is on our minds is that last year in 2023 was actually the 10th year, the 10th anniversary, if you will, of the turbo hybrid era. So we thought we would take some time during this summer break to have a look back at our favourite races from the turbo hybrid era to see which ones really stick in our minds, which one will be remembered for a long, long time in the future. I am joined once again by Will Kingswood, and also making a long-awaited return to the podcast, it is our wonderful society president, Katch. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm enjoying the summer, enjoying the break before we get back to it. I'm missing the cars going vroom, to be honest, but I've enjoyed doing a bit of research, looking back at highlights of the past 10 years. It's been nice.
It's been nice going back through some old race highlights and giving our idea of some of the better races indeed. So basically what we've done is we've chosen one race, or favourite race from each season, going back from 2014 all the way to 2023 last year, and we're just going to have a bit of a discussion, I think, of what we've chosen. As I know, well, I've talked to Will a little bit about this at the end of our last recordings, and we certainly have some differing opinions on this. But yeah, so we'll get straight into it. So we'll go with 2014. That was really a long time ago. I had to really scratch my brain and remember for that one. We'll start with Will. What have you chosen for your 2014 race?
So I've gone for, and it is still, I think, probably one of the most well-known turbo hybrid era race even now, and I've gone for the Duel in the Desert in Bahrain, and the battle between Rosberg and Hungary. I think it was the second race of the turbo hybrid era, and after the first race, obviously we'd had quite a few engine failures. I think a few people were a bit scared of kind of the teething problems that maybe you would see for the season, especially because Mercedes was so far ahead of everyone else. But then we go to Bahrain, the first night race, I think, at the circuit, and we're treated to a battle between Rosberg and Hungary that I think you do still talk about it to this day. Multiple laps kind of going wheel to wheel, offering up a taste of kind of what we get over the next 3 years between the Mercedes teammates, who were, at the time, quite far ahead of the rest of the grid. But it wasn't just going to be one driver dominating. It was those two. They'd be duking it out for the world title. And I think that race really, really set the tone for the turbo, or the early turbo hybrid era. So it's the one I've gone for.
Well, yeah, I'd say that's incredibly boring, because I have gone for exactly the same for exactly the same reasons. It was a brilliant duel that I think will be remembered for a very long time. And not only was it the main showdown between Rosberg and Hamilton, I think we had a load of different battles throughout the grid. I think we had initially on, there was the two Force Indias that definitely were up there, as well as I want to say Felipe Massa, and I'm certain that the two Red Bulls were up there as well at some point. And it was just prolonged. It's kind of the racing that you see where there'll be back and forth between a couple of corners, which you'll maybe get some rare moments of in one race. But there were so many of that moments in Bahrain, and I think that's ultimately why it sticks. It was the first one certainly I thought of when I thought 2014. Katch, were you along similar lines?
Yeah. Do we want to make it 3? Yeah, it is the one you think of. It was so iconic, especially that battle. The first time it being at night in Bahrain was just amazing. Ricciardo, I noted down, had a great drive in the field, and is definitely an honourable mention. But because I had a feeling we would all go for that one, I also put the British Grand Prix in July as a good second option, as there were a lot of crashes. Bottas and the Williams did a great drive through second place, and we all like it when Williams did well in that era. Iconic Alonso and Vettel battles, and this was only Hamilton's second time winning the British Grand Prix, which is crazy to think, saying that he debuted in 2007. How was 2014 only the second time? But yeah, Bahrain has to be the number one for 2014.
I can see Will thoroughly agreeing with you there with the Britain
I'll
mention.
never not agree with a Hamilton win. I think, actually, if we're doing honourable mentions, because I've written down a few honourable mentions for the years as well. I think another one was Hungary, where we saw Hamilton having to start from the pit lane, spinning out on lap one, wet race. Alonso in a Ferrari that I think it's fair to say was one of the worst Ferraris we saw out of that decade, was like a few laps away from winning, and then obviously Ricciardo comes through and gets his second win in the sport, and Hamilton coming from the back of the grid to end up finishing third. I think that was another race in 2014 that was pretty good.
Well, certainly we've gone same for the first year out, but I think there's going to be certainly some years where we do disagree. We'll move on to 2015. Katch, we'll go with you first. What did you say for this one?
So I went quite typical again, and I went for the Hungarian Grand Prix, as it was.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's me as well.
I have a feeling we'll all go for the same in a couple, but don't worry, it will be coming up. There will be a different one. But yeah, the Hungarian Grand Prix, it was in honour of Jules Bianchi, so it was always going to be a special weekend no matter what. And I think the strategy decisions, like obviously there was a lot of accidents and a lot of reckless driving, which made it quite an interesting watch, but also the strategic side made it a good race with the decision of when to use the soft and medium tyres with multiple pit stops. So I think that it made it such an iconic race. Also, it was Kvyat's first podium, so credit to him. I always like it, but it's always a good race when someone gets a podium or wins for the first time.
Yeah, indeed, I've gone for Hungary with for the exactly same reason. We had certainly the Mercedes and Ferrari battling out Kvyat's first podium, as you said, and it was just I think everything that came out of that race was brilliant. We had as we'll notice as well through some of these years, I do like a bit of chaos, and we had that quite big crush from, I think it was Hulkenberg after he lost his front wing just down the straight or something like that. And yeah, I think it was a really exciting race. Will, have you gone for something similar?
I've actually not gone for Hungary. I've gone for the race that secured it. I shouldn't have prefaced it like that because it's going to look like I've only picked it because Hamilton won his world title. I've gone for the US Grand Prix in 2015, and it was a wet to dry race, and I think it was a race in which about 5 people were challenging for the lead at any one point. It was kind of just chaotic. We saw, I think, qualifying on the Sunday as well because it had been completely rained out on the Saturday. I want to say it was like remnants of a hurricane were sweeping through Austin kind of at that point, making delaying qualifying to the Sunday. But no, it's one that I don't think gets spoken about that much, primarily because I think 2015 was probably the worst season out of the turbo hybrid era in terms of competitiveness and good racing. Like, there wasn't really a title battle. There weren't really that many races that stood out. And I do think that if I was going to rank the 10 seasons we were going to do here, just overall, 2015 would be 10th for me. But the US Grand Prix and to be fair, the Hungarian Grand Prix were highlights in maybe what wasn't that good of a season.
Certainly, I think it was probably the best of a bad bunch. As you mentioned, I think we've got some incredible seasons on here, and as we get to seasons like 2021, it's almost like you could choose so many different races from those seasons. So many different races from the single season because of how good it was. But I think we could. Well, I think USA is a very good shout. That was I think very exciting end or kind of finish to the Drivers' Championship. Even though, again, as you said, it wasn't overall as a title fight as we'll come to in some of these future seasons. We'll move on to 2016 then. Now, Katch and I actually spoke about this before, and I've gone for the one that you actually kind of refused to go for, but I went with Spain, and I think it's the one that just sticks in my mind, and I think I've done it for a lot of these races for a lot of these seasons where it's been right, what's the one that I immediately think of when it comes to these seasons? And Spain is that one. Not actually because of the Verstappen maiden win, although that's obviously one of the main factors that made it such a special race for a lot of people. We had the Mercedes double DNF during the start as well. But also, I think, well, the main reason I think about this is I think it delivered probably the most iconic team radio message that we have ever heard, which is, "What is this, racing or ping pong?" by Sebastian Vettel. But apart from that, I thought it was a great race. As we said from that quote, maybe some drivers toying with the line between legal and not, but I thought it was a really entertaining race personally. And Katch, you've obviously was thinking about Spain, but have gone with something different. What is that different race?
See, here's where the issue is. I don't disagree that it's the first race you think of when it comes to 2016. However, I do not like Max Verstappen, so I'm not going to go with his maiden victory. I outright refuse. Which, call me petty all you want. I'm not going to do it.
I'd say a lot of people would agree with you there, so I wouldn't. Don't worry about it. But yeah,
I'm not going to change my mind. The issue is there wasn't any other races that came to mind as iconic races from that era. I would say 2016 was interesting because we obviously had the title battle between Rosberg and Hamilton, but it didn't have as many standout races. It was just a really good title battle throughout, like a bit of ping pong, to use Seb's quote. But yeah, I was struggling to find some races. The Brazilian Grand Prix obviously was the second to last race. Hamilton had to win it to stop Rosberg getting the title, and it was a very wet race with Grosjean crashing on the way to the grid. And I think there being 2 red flag periods. Max Verstappen had his iconic cold moment where he drifted 90 degrees, then slid along and then turned back to go race forwards. And he had a fab race, I have to admit, 16th to 3rd in 14 laps. So I would say that was a really good race, instead of the Spain race, as Hamilton winning meant that even though Rosberg probably would have got the title anyway, it had to go to the final race of the season. So that is what I think I lent on. But for me, 2016 is it was a good era, it was a good season, but there were so many better ones of iconic races and battles. So I feel like, Will, you've gone for Spain.
I've not gone for Spain. I've gone for Brazil as well.
Hey.
I mean, I think rain always makes it interesting. And I think when you're going to a track like Brazil, it doesn't necessarily need the rain to become a better race. But when you do get that rain, it becomes top tier. And I think I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Katch. And like Hamilton needed to win that race and led all 71 laps. We obviously saw the talent that Max Verstappen had in the wet that he was then able to build on over the years following. It was an incredibly wet race. I think every driver was kind of on that limit, trying to keep the car on the track. But I think I do agree in that 2016, you almost get some seasons where they're not good title battles, but they have good races in them. And I think 2020, which we'll come on to, is a prime example of that. And then you almost get some seasons which have good title battles, but maybe don't have as many good races, as I think I agree with 2016. There wasn't much that stood out. Obviously, we had Spain, I think Austria as well, the collision right at the end where Nico Rosberg kind of forgot to turn right. But other than that, it was kind of very much a to and fro battle. So I completely agree. And I think Brazil is the one I go for, but I do think Spain has to be an honourable mention. You can't overlook Max Verstappen's first win at the age of 17, and especially not what caused it, but what was the catalyst for that with the Mercedes colliding on lap 1, and really, I think, setting off not the beginning of the end for Rosberg's career, but that drive in him that eventually did lead him to his first world title.
I can't actually quite remember. I was just back to 2016. Was Verstappen a bit more respected than he maybe was come 2018 when we knew him firmly as the reckless driver, or did he have that reputation by then?
I think he wasn't crashing so much, but he was quite on the line in terms of what he
What was acceptable,
allowed
yes.
to do. I mean, we saw, I think it must have been 2015, Monaco. He obviously had his collision with Grosjean, and that was really very emblematic of Max Verstappen's early career, in that he was incredibly fast, incredibly good at racecraft. I think he was using a front runner, and he'd been lapped. He was using that car to overtake as other drivers were getting out of the way, but then he collides with Grosjean, takes himself out of the race. And I think that kind of reputation was still with him at the moment. He was probably making moves that were over the line, but you could see his pace, and you saw it in Spain, you saw it in Britain, and obviously you saw it in Brazil, as we've mentioned.
Well, certainly that's one of the takeaways I had from, as I mentioned, Spain 2016. Again, leading to that quote that we all know, and the fact that he would just probably use any means necessary to try and get past the car in front. But obviously that was his first one. But yeah, so there's again, as Will mentioned, maybe not too many really memorable races from that, even though we did have the title battle between the two Mercedes. But a couple of good mentions there. I guess I went for the one that everyone else was kind of refusing to go for. But we'll move on to 2017. And in the spirit of, well, you mentioned Brazil last in 2016 because of the wet race. And I'm going to go along similar lines for 2017. And I'm going to say Singapore for 2017. And for me, just because, well, as I mentioned, I do like quite a bit of chaos, and for this race, we did have quite a bit of that, I think. I'm just looking now, we actually only had 12 drivers that finished this Grand Prix. Obviously, some due to some engine retirements and car issues, but we had that massive crash at the beginning between, which obviously led to the double DNF for the Ferraris, and taking out Max Verstappen, and pretty much Verstappen, I think, well, actually, he was the one who collided with Raikkonen after they both clipped his front tyres. But then we also had a spin from Marcus Ericsson, if I can remember it, in the tunnel section, and just a lot of that. It seemed that just a lot of overtaking attempts just led to some kind of contact, even if they didn't lead to any sort of crashing or anything like that. And so it seemed like a very chaotic race. Obviously, that led on from the rain and it being such a tight and narrow circuit, as we know Singapore is. But I'd say that's the reason. That's, again, the race that really sticks in my mind from 2017 as being like, what on earth is happening here? And that's the reason that I've chosen it, I suppose. Well, what was your opinion on the best race of 2017?
I did think about Singapore, because I think you've got to think about Singapore, obviously quite an iconic start, and the first time both Ferraris had ever been knocked out of the race on the first lap in all of their history in F1. But
really,
that's crazy.
Yeah, I've gone for Baku because that race was chaos. Like we'd been to Azerbaijan a year before in 2016 for the final European Grand Prix, and I think it was fair to say no one remembers the 2016 European Grand Prix, and that probably says a lot about what happened, or the lack of what happened during the race. But we go there in 2017 and it's chaos. You get safety car, then you've got all the drivers being about 3 wide going down the main straight, inevitably resulting in a crash. And then you get another safety car and we do it all again. Obviously, this was the first, I think, bit of or reminder of what we had in the Mercedes era from 14 to 16 would be translating over into the Hamilton-Vettel battle, where obviously Vettel accuses Hamilton of brake checking, drives alongside and hits Hamilton's car. We find out afterwards he's not brake checking, but that's kind of a bit acrimonious. Vettel's given a penalty, but then Hamilton drops back as well because his headrest comes loose. I don't think anyone expected that to happen. And then Daniel Ricciardo coming from starting nearer the back of the grid to come through and win his first race since 2014, and able to make one of the most iconic overtakes, I think, of the turbo hybrid era, the four wide on the two Williams and Nico Hülkenberg to go through to take what would end up being the lead and hold on for the win. In other sad news, Nico Hülkenberg was on for a podium, then crashed, which is kind of emblematic of a lot of potential Nico Hülkenberg.
Was that podiums. When did he hand the podium to Lance Stroll? Is that the one where he got the podium with the Williams?
I don't think he handed it to him, but it's like, this was a Hülkenberg could have got the podium, but
that's why it's so sad though. Not just Hülkenberg could have had a podium, but he handed it to Lance Stroll.
Yeah.
Lance Stroll was good in this era.
Yeah.
This was early Stroll. People thought Stroll had potential, and then on the line, it was the Bottas Stroll final lap sprint for the line. Bottas just overtaking the Williams. I think Bottas had a crash early on, I think, with Raikkonen at the start of the race and managed to recover to second place. But no, a Red Bull Mercedes Williams podium. I think if you're getting something like that in 2017, something must have gone right in the race.
It's interesting because you look at Azerbaijan, and on paper you don't think it should really deliver that interesting races. At least I think it should deliver that much interesting races with how tight it is. But it has actually been, I think, had some quite iconic races over the years, including that 2017 one, and also some ones that we'll come to a bit later. Katch, what was your take on 2017?
I also went for Azerbaijan, as Ricciardo, his come through was incredible. I think I wrote down after lap 6 he was 17th, which is insane. There was also Raikkonen with the red flag period, because there was a lot of debris. Raikkonen, they retired the car and then they fixed it under red flags. They brought it back, and it's where we got the iconic "I want my gloves and steering wheel" quote fiasco thing. Screaming at the engineers about that. Also, because Will was saying about cars going 2, 3 wide, 4 wide round the corners, Ocon, I think this is where Ocon first showed his real compatibility as a teammate, when he pushed Perez into the barrier and caused both of them damage. I think that was a good day for Racing Point.
That's how he means to go on, then. That's
exactly. That's what he intended to do. But I went for Azerbaijan. It was good. It has had some iconic races, but I don't know. It's like you were saying, you don't expect it to. But there's definitely countries and places that have had better races, but I still think Azerbaijan stay on the calendar, please. There's occasionally...
Oh, absolutely. It's, it's only that race where you can get the most mind-boggling back straight and then have the rest of them be like really slow corners, and it's pretty much impossible, I think, for the teams to get a perfect setup for something like that. But no, I agree. Azerbaijan was really good that year. And swiftly moving on to 2018, I actually also went for Azerbaijan in 2018. Interesting enough.
Callum, what did you go for in 2017?
Singapore.
Oh yes, sorry.
Yeah. Azerbaijan in 2018, I thought I had to get Azerbaijan in my list somewhere. Again, so many moments I can remember from that. So that was a Red Bull double DNF with I think it was Verstappen. Pretty much the Red Bulls were just trying to overtake each other, I think, for the whole race. Ricciardo got in front of him, and then after the pit stops got back behind him again. And so that leads to the inevitable of Max Verstappen doing what he always does and move under braking, causing both drivers to crash out. We also had you mentioned Ocon with his collisions. I think he collided with Raikkonen in this race, causing both of them to go out. And also, I think Bottas was on for the win in this race, but he got a puncture from some debris, I think, left over from the Red Bull incident, or the incident with the two Red Bulls, and ultimately got a puncture, which which severed any hopes that he had. And so a very eventful race again, and that's certainly the one that I remember from 2018. Katch, what was your take on 2018? I think there were quite a good few races in 2018. I found it quite hard to pick out of that year. I really did like 2018.
Yeah, 2018 was a good era, a good season. Definitely, I think of Baku as the first one that comes to mind, but I didn't want to put it twice on my list. There was other ones I thought I may as well go for. So the one I ended up on was the US Grand Prix in October, because for me, I love COTA. COTA is an amazing circuit. I always enjoy watching it. And when I was watching so just to summarize, it was a Kimi and Ferrari win, his first one, I believe, since 2016 or something, or maybe earlier.
2013.
Was it 13?
I think that,
it was a long wait for a win. Which makes it all the better, I suppose.
Yeah, and seeing him win is great. There was the lap 1 chaos and a lot of battles and pushing off, because that tight hairpin at the top of the run-up it definitely creates some issues. There was also, I've written down this quote wrong, but for the first time since maybe Abu Dhabi, 2010 or 2011, Kimi Raikkonen made up a place on lap 1. He hadn't done it for years. And this was the first time in maybe 5 years or something.
So that time he knew it was right, I'm getting this win now, because it's the first time that he's done that.
It's the first time he did it, and he's right, I'm going for it. And there was just the Mercedes couldn't do it. Verstappen wasn't on it that day, so it was Kimi's for the taking. And it was quite nice. So, if it wasn't for Baku being before, I would have gone for that. But I really like COTA, so US Grand Prix it was.
Very true. Well, what was yours?
I think this is the first year we've all gone for something different, because I've gone for the British Grand Prix of 2018. Way. So this started badly as a Hamilton fan for me, as Raikkonen decided to charge up the inside and spin Hamilton into last place. We then kind of had, I almost think it's very similar to a 2024 race that we seem to be getting a lot of, where it all kind of dies down in the early to middle part, and then it ramps up very quickly at the end, and suddenly we're on to a battle for the win for the ages. And that's what we got in 2018. After a collision between Grosjean and Sainz at Copse Corner, Mercedes had left their cars out, so Hamilton and Bottas were running, and the Ferraris had pitted, so they were on newer tyres, and we were running Bottas, Vettel, Hamilton, Raikkonen, and for about 6 or 7 laps, they were within about 3 seconds of each other. It was insane. And eventually Vettel overtakes Bottas to win. I think Bottas gives up second place on team orders as well, so Hamilton recovers from 20th to come second. But just that kind of image of it being Mercedes, Ferrari, those four running almost line astern for 6 laps. Can Hamilton overtake Vettel and come back to go from last to first in Britain? He wasn't able to do that, but just that kind of era. And I think this is weird for me, but it almost is made more iconic by the fact that the grass is just dead. It's just yellow grass, because it was the really hot summer of 2018 when it just didn't rain. So if you look at any British Grand Prix, the grass is fairly green for a lot of it. And you go to 2018, it's just a sea of yellow. And that almost made it more iconic, more special. And obviously it maybe didn't end as well for the British fans. This was, I think, the first race, or one of the races out of about, that snapped to Hamilton, that if he'd won, it would have been about 7 streak at Britain. But obviously it worked out for the Brit in the end in the championship. But no, if you thought 2024 was good in terms of 3 drivers line astern in competing for the win, then go back and watch 2018, because I guarantee you'll love it.
I feel like Silverstone, Silverstone is one of those tracks where I think it does always deliver. There hasn't really been a lot of bad Silverstone races. It is one of the best races on the calendar, I think. And you could certainly pick Silverstone as probably quite a few of these these seasons. It's definitely been very good. I should also mention, I haven't actually made a list of any honourable mentions, but probably one honourable mention I'd like to make for this season is actually China. I quite like the 2018 Chinese Grand Prix. Ricciardo, I think it was a tyre change that the Red Bulls made, possibly in the safety car, when the Mercedes and the Ferrari didn't, and that meant Ricciardo became, well, pretty much the king of dive bombs, lick the stamp and send it. And Verstappen then tried to copy him, and we all know what happened. He collided with Vettel and pretty much put himself out of contention. But yeah, I thought that was quite an entertaining race. And also, I think we had the two Toro Rossos that took each other out. There's a lot of action just down that one corner, obviously where Ricciardo decided to make all of his moves. But I certainly did enjoy that race, and I do find myself going back and watching those highlights quite a lot for China. We'll move on. Sorry, go on.
Well, I think Germany that year was pretty good. It was the race after Britain, and obviously we had the infamous Vettel going long, kind of in the stadium section, going into the gravel, and in the wet. And I think as well the podium celebration where it's just chucking it down with rain, and like it's just Hamilton, Raikkonen, and Bottas stood on the podium, kind of looking out. And especially after Vettel had won Britain, you almost Hamilton was a little bit on the ropes, and I think he came back and won that race in quite an iconic way.
Yeah, certainly. And speaking of Germany as well, Will's provided me with some great segues here. We're moving on to 2019, and I think this was such an easy choice for me. I think Germany is probably for me at least, Germany is in 2019 is the F1 race I remember. I think everyone and their nan just spun off at some point. I don't think there was a single driver that kept all four wheels on the track for the entire race. We had it was a soaking wet race throughout. We had Perez going off. We had Leclerc crashing, Hülkenberg. I remember Norris going off as well. Verstappen did that 360 on the chicane, which was actually pretty cool. Hamilton got a penalty, I think, because he crossed the line. Bottas crashed out as well. I remember because it was the Mercedes and they had some anniversary, so they painted their car a different colour and it came crashing down for them. I think that was probably one of my favourite all-time races that I've had the privilege to watch live. There was so much that happened, and something seemed to happen every lap, and it was just, I can't think of, apart from maybe Verstappen, I can't think of one driver that was properly satisfied with their entire performance that race. There were a lot of mistakes being made, obviously, in the tough conditions, and yeah, it was brilliant. Would anyone like to agree with me on Germany?
I haven't gone for Germany, but I just want to, I completely agree. I think I'd put it as an honourable mention of how good it was. Vettel went from 20th to 2nd. Hamilton had the longest pit stop in human history until Bottas's a few years later.
Yep.
Kvyat got a podium. Stroll was P4.
Yes, of course.
This was Kubica's last point in F1. The infamous drag strip of death, where if you put one tyre on it, you were sucked into the tyre barrier. Yeah. Nico Hülkenberg could have got a podium, then crashed. It was a crazy race.
Yeah, everyone's heart just sunk at that moment. Yeah.
But also,
I need to go rewatch it.
Yeah. Can I also make a point that I think we all, as much as it was iconic for the racing, I think it was so much better because it was a Mercedes. They were all dressing up. They were all, this was going to be their weekend. This was going to be their race. And it all went wrong. Anything that could go wrong went wrong for them.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I remember back then, I wouldn't say I absolutely hated Mercedes, but it was, you obviously like to cheer for the underdog, and that for them they'd been the dominant car for a very long period of time, and it just maybe just an evil laugh inside of me, just very quiet laugh, but it was a laugh indeed that just haha, they haven't done well this race, and they haven't got the result that they would have liked at all. Yeah. And so, but yeah, Katch, what race did you go for?
I also went for Germany. It
Fair
was
enough.
a race.
Yeah.
It had to be for me.
It was certainly very good. Can we think of any honourable mentions for 2019? That's definitely, because I didn't really go looking at anything else. I was like, right, Germany, it's got to be, but I don't think I considered many others.
To be fair, I probably did make a mistake not picking Germany, but I did pick Britain because there was F1 released on their YouTube channel before the British Grand Prix an hour of British Grand Prix highlights. So I then spent an hour procrastinating watching that. And I think I missed the 2019 British Grand Prix. I must have been doing something because I hadn't realised how fun that race was. Just because you had the Mercedes at the start and then Hamilton kind of goes away and wins it. But behind them, you've got both Red Bulls and both Ferraris just like hammer and tongsing at each other for about 20 laps. Like everyone's overtaking everyone. Obviously, you get the Vettel collision with Verstappen as well. And that one, like, I didn't realize how good that race was. And like looking back at it, it's one that I do think I missed out on. And I think it is one that deserves to be up there. And I think as well, Brazil is probably the other honourable mention I'd go for. We had kind of that Verstappen Hamilton battle, like throughout the race after the pit stops, you're always seeing them together. Obviously, safety car restarts as well. And Carlos Sainz got his first podium in the end after Hamilton crashed with Albon.
Yeah, he didn't actually. Did he actually stand up on the podium though? I don't think he did. No. Did he? No. And Katch, didn't you say that 2019 Brazil was also? We said about this before the recording. It was the Ferrari double DNF because they made probably like the slightest ever. I think it's probably gone down in the F1 history as the contact that's caused a double DNF in history. But yeah, it was a funny double DNF all the same. But yeah, there was certainly some good honourable mentions there. As we said, Silverstone, you could put that for so many of them. So we're getting into the more recent ones now. 2020. We'll come to you first. What are you saying for 2020?
Well, this was just a weird season. Obviously, the pandemic and kind of going to different tracks, and it is one of the different tracks that I think I've put as the best race, and it is Turkey, because I don't know what they put on that surface, but it made it slipperier than an ice rink. I swear. I remember qualifying was so entertaining because the cars it was wet, which made it worse for both the quali and the race. And you just had cars going round, and I think it ended up being Stroll was about 7/10 quicker than everyone else. I honestly think this was Stroll's best weekend of his career. I know he didn't win, but that was because of damage on the race day. If he's not got that, I think he's easily P2 or P3 or even P1. And it was all over the place in the race. It kind of like anyone could have won it. And then obviously Hamilton goes through to get his seventh world title, take that win. And then behind him we had Sergio Perez in P2. Quite a popular, I think, P2 at the time. Everyone thought that maybe it was his best chance to almost win a race, and then he did go on to win it in Sakir. And then behind him we had Vettel getting P3 after Leclerc made his mistake on the final lap. And I think it's fair to say that 2020 podium was probably one of the most popular podiums I think we'll ever see in F1. And honestly, that 2020 Turkish Grand Prix was all over the place, and I loved it.
That's interesting, because I thought you were going to go Sakir with Perez's win. Is that an honourable mention?
Yeah, I put that as an honourable mention with Mugello. Mugello wasn't that good of a race, just I liked going to Mugello because I think it was perfect for those F1 cars.
We should mention Sakir. I think from Perez after, he spun out on the first lap and coming back through, especially when you know that his kind of, in the end, in hindsight, his career kind of depended on it, because not just on that race, but that was the one race where he properly confirmed, right, yes, I deserve a seat in F1. Needs one of those performances roundabout now, I'd say, but it was certainly, he delivered it back then when he needed to. Katch, what did you put for 2020?
Yes, I had Turkey as my honourable mention because I remember that race. It was really great. But I think no one's going to be shocked that my 2020 race was Austria. It was the first one back. We were all extremely hyped for it. And it was, we were like, yes, finally, racing is back. It's going to be great. Max retired, even though we thought maybe he could. We didn't know because it was COVID. People could maybe challenge Lewis Hamilton. That would be great. But the main reason it was my favourite race was because it was Lando's first podium. No one expected it. It was the 4.8. He had to get under 5 seconds to Hamilton. He got that 4.8, that incredible last lap. So for me, that moment in itself, that made it my favourite race.
Fair enough. Well, I'm very surprised that actually no one's mentioned my choice, because I haven't gone Turkey, haven't gone Austria, haven't gone Mugello. I've gone maybe quite boring for Italy for Gasly's first win in the AlphaTauri, and I think it was nice at that time because it was almost like a bit of a redemption arc, because obviously he struggled greatly at Red Bull and he'd been ditched by them about halfway through the season. But I think he really showed when he got back into, I think it was, I'm not sure if it was Toro Rosso at the time or if it was already AlphaTauri, I can't quite remember. But when he got back into that second seat and was demoted in the end, he really showed what kind of talent he actually did have. And what an incredible drive he can put together. I think secretly during the race, I was also kind of hoping for maybe Sainz to overtake, because I was and still am a big Carlos Sainz fan. But I was really happy that Gasly was able to get that win, and you could hear how much it meant to him on the team radio afterwards, and see in his celebrations. And I think, and there was a load of really good ones, I think, and a load of really good things to mention from that race. There were quite a lot of the big teams that obviously struggled. I think obviously Ferrari had, Leclerc had that huge crash, and then Vettel also suffered a similar kind of brake problem. And obviously it was Hamilton who got the his drive-through penalty that caused Gasly to be able to get out in front, and Bottas, I think, dropped back huge number of places from on the first few laps of the Grand Prix. And again, the one that sticks in my mind, I think maybe because of the result and how bonkers the ordering was, with, I think it was it was Gasly, Sainz, and I can't remember who was third in that race.
I think it was Stroll.
Stroll, of course. Yeah, so that even bonkers in the racing point.
Stroll actually started P2. Hamilton was, I think, after the red flag, Hamilton was P1, and then obviously had to peel into the pits. Stroll, if he'd had a good start, should have won that race.
Yeah.
Like, Gasly had the best start, got into P2, and then obviously won it. Like, Stroll was I think he was P2. He was P2, or he was the first driver before they started applying penalties, because he was the only one that didn't. There was a safety car before Leclerc, I think, for Giovinazzi, which caused the Hamilton's penalty, and Stroll was the only one that didn't pit. But then Leclerc, after the safety car restart, Leclerc crashes, we get a red flag, and suddenly Stroll's decision not to pit becomes the best decision he's ever made. And if he just gets a good start, he wins that race, and unfortunately he wasn't able to.
So maybe slightly unlucky from the circumstances, but he still got a P3 in what I think at the time was a racing point. Am I correct in saying?
Yeah.
So still, I guess, a good result for him in hindsight. But yeah, that's the one that sticks in my mind.
Before we go on to 2021, I do want to make a point that everyone, obviously, best season in the last decade, sure. But 2020 was actually, there were less races, it was more chaotic, but I think it's been underrated as a season, because though there was a lot of Lewis dominance, he won most of the races. I've looked it up. There were 13 different podium sitters. That's quite a lot for a season where there was a lot of dominance. So I think because of the unpredictability, some great winners like Gasly and some people like Lance Stroll that got podiums that weren't expecting to, I think 2020 was a really great season despite the circumstances.
Well, I think certainly go on.
I think it was because there was no title battle. I think 13 podium sitters was the high. Like, we'd gone through about 4 years where it was literally just the Ferrari and the Mercedes and the Red Bull.
Yeah.
And one other guy would get a podium out of those, outside of those three teams. And then we get 13. I think it was everyone except the Williams, the Haas, the Alfa Romeos, and Kvyat. And Kvyat got a fourth in Imola, so he was close to a podium there. I'm just annoyed that Nico Hulkenberg got kicked out of the sport at the start of this year, because I guarantee
He would
if
have.
he was in any car, if he was in the Racing Point or the Renault for that entire season, he would have got a podium.
Typically, the one
was just
season
so
where he had a
Yeah.
prime opportunity to get his first podium, and he wasn't in the season. No, I think certainly, Katch, you make a very good point, because we've mentioned, I think, a good 5 races there that we all had as honourable mentions or the top, which I guess gives credit to how good of a season it was, especially as it was a season that was cut short because of COVID. I think, as you mentioned, the first race was Austria. So even though maybe not quite remembered, I guess we might typically remember the seasons that have title battles. So, for example, 2016, 2021, it was certainly a very good season if you maybe just forget for a second the fact that Hamilton did dominate, as he has done for so many years. But certainly, we'll move on to 2021. Now, I've been really looking forward to talking about this season, because there are so many races you could talk about in this season. And I remember Will and I actually talked about this before. Now, in the race that I've picked, we both agree on the nature of it and the fact that it was incredibly chaotic, but Will hates it for that reason, and I love it for that reason. I may as well spill the beans now. I've gone for Saudi Arabia, and Will's shaking his head. Hang on a minute, let me explain my reasoning. Okay, I'm fully aware that it was some of the worst. I've written just in my notes here, because I've got some notes by each race to give me reminders as to what happened, and I've got in brackets everything goes to, and I can't say the next word on this podcast, but I think you get the idea. And we both agree that it was probably the worst driving standards we've ever seen in a race, probably in the last decade. But as I said, I really love a bit of chaos in our races, and that's why I love that race. It really felt like the battle for the title was just boiling over, and you were just watching this race and you think, what is going on? I've got Ocon starting from pole on the line, I've got Verstappen brake checking Hamilton, and you just think, like, you couldn't write this stuff that happens in this race. That's why I remember it, because it was just such a showdown, I think, which you could not predict at any point what was going to happen. That's how I remember it. And I think Will doesn't like it for that reason, because it was such poor driving standards, which I can understand, but I guess we just look for different things in a race.
Right. Obviously, Abu Dhabi is.
Go on, make your case.
Abu Dhabi is the one everyone looks towards when we talk about poor officiating. That's understandable. Saudi Arabia is worse, in my opinion. Every single decision.
No, you cannot say that.
Not for officiating. No, not for officiating.
Every single decision the stewards made was dumb in some way. And the driving was somehow worse from Max.
The driving was worse, but the officiating came from the awful officiating in Brazil, which is my honorable mention. But, like, if it just carried on, they had to keep to those standards, which were awful. But the driving, I remember being sat there watching it in the Clarendon, being like, what is going on? This is not a race.
I get why people enjoy it if you've got no stake in it, but as a Hamilton fan, it was one of the most
I was a Hamilton.
You won the race.
Yeah, no, I know, and I'm still annoyed by it.
But the thing is, the driving standards in Saudi Arabia were so bad, right? But Abu Dhabi, if we want to think, I will never watch Abu Dhabi in my life again.
No, neither. I've never gone back to watch those highlights.
But for the majority of the race, the first part, the driving standards weren't that bad. It was fine.
No. And also, we should acknowledge that Abu Dhabi 2021 was, I think, the worst piece of officiating that we have ever seen in
history.
Certainly all the time that I've watched F1, maybe even history. Obviously, I can't speak back to like the 1960s, but it was shocking. I don't want to get into it, because it's almost like, as we mentioned, no one goes back and watches the highlights, because it's almost something we just sweep under the rug, because F1, I think, in general, is embarrassed as to what happened in that race and how much of a bitter taste it left in everyone's mouth. So I wouldn't go as far as to say that it was worse Saudi Arabia than Abu Dhabi, it was still, it still wasn't great officiating, but yeah. Anyway, Will, what have you gone for?
I'll do my actual one. I've gone for Hungary. I think.
Yeah, see, I agree with you on this.
I was saying this to you last week. As a kid and as I was growing up, always wondered what would happen if 19 drivers had been eliminated from the race and there was one driver left to start. And I got that.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd get that. And it was just chaos. And I think the fact is, like, Ocon obviously does exceptionally well to win. Alonso's defending is top notch. We got all the carnage at the start with Bottas bowling and things like that. And I think as well, and like we would have got a Vettel on the podium if he hadn't unfortunately been disqualified. I think that for me is a really
Seb definitely got a podium. I don't know what you're on about.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, definitely. We ignore what happened after the race.
Yeah, nothing.
But no, I think Hungary for me was a really great one. I mean, Katch, what have you gone for? Before I say my honourable mentions.
Hungary's something that I'll say, it was great objectively, but I'm not an objective F1 fan in 2021. So when Lando Norris got yeeted by Bottas, I'm not happy. I remember watching that race in work, and I had it on my phone, and that happened. I had to walk outside so I didn't scream because I was like, I'm not doing this. So on that train of thought, my favourite race was Monza. So I personally, controversially, think it was the wrong way around. It definitely was the wrong way around. But besides that, it was a McLaren 1-2, and the halo, God send the halo, saving Hamilton's life. We all knew that it was heating up. I think that's one of the... I won't say from the second half of the season, that's probably the first time that it started to get close to boiling over in that title battle. And I think it was really interesting to see that.
Yeah.
And Valtteri Bottas as well, doing a great recovery drive, even though he started at the back of the grid. And Bottas needed to do that because Hamilton needed a partner in crime. But yes, I think Monza for me was a great race. It had to be. But also, if we're taking the McLaren bias aside, my honourable mention is Brazil. Brazil producing, like we've said, some incredible races. And I want to include the sprint race in this because the sprint race by itself is worthy of the win from this season, in my opinion. But both of them together, like, Lewis is the GOAT. That's all that I need to say.
I don't know what they put in that engine, but it works.
It works.
I am happy about that.
Yeah.
No, I've gone for Brazil as an honourable mention as well. I think it epitomised almost what that season, like, it almost felt destined that we'd go into Abu Dhabi like level, and regardless of anything that was thrown at Hamilton at that point, he just seemed like he would win that race. And I know we obviously had the incident with Verstappen. I don't want to dwell on like poor officiating for much longer as well, but Hamilton got the win in the end. I think the result was fair, maybe even if the decisions won.
Yeah. But also, this was Lewis's first win since the unnamed race in that unnamed country. So, yeah, it was.
Wasn't Saudi Arabia second last? Because I think it was Brazil, Qatar.
Yeah, because Hamilton went. Because he won that race, we went into Abu Dhabi on level points.
Yeah. It was Brazil, Saudi Arabia. No, I'm not on about Saudi Arabia. I'm on about a previous one that doesn't exist in September. But yes.
Oh no, that was going to be another honourable mention.
Yeah, that's not going to be an honourable mention. That race again, it doesn't exist in my mind.
I won't dwell on it because I don't think it's fair to make fun of Lando Norris too much for making a really bad strategy call. But even outside of that, that was by far the best Russian Grand Prix we'd ever had.
Yeah.
It was a really good, it was a really good race even before the rain came.
From a track that's not that great, it was maybe surprising what we would deliver. But I suppose you could say that for a lot of 2021. I feel like as another honourable mention, we've got to include Silverstone, surely. But then I suppose we could go on with a lot of races in 2021.
I think there were only probably for me about 4 or 5 races in 2021 that I would say weren't good. The rest
Were they the ones that Verstappen won?
They weren't all the ones for stat. I think Portimao is probably one that wasn't good. Hamilton won that. Monaco, I think both of the Austrias weren't great, and Qatar probably wasn't the most interesting in the world. But other than that, everyone I can think of. Oh, and Belgium, which didn't happen really, but we can talk about that.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think every race that I can think of in some way had some merit to it.
It was a really good season, wasn't it? I think, and coming back to what Katch said with Monza, is another one of those races where you look at the pecking order and you just think, what has happened in that race? And I think if you can say that for a race, it's definitely worth mentioning. But we'll park mine and Will's disagreement about the officiating until after the podcast. We'll be here for another 2 hours, if not. So we'll move on to 2022. And Will, we'll start with you. What have you chosen for 2022?
I've gone for Singapore because it was funny. Because quite literally everybody, except I think about 3 drivers, dropped an absolute stinker. And it was very funny to watch. Like you had
who were the drivers that didn't drop an absolute stinker? You're gonna have to remind me.
Perez won, obviously, so probably Perez. I think Sainz as well. Leclerc, I think, had dropped back, had lost the lead of the race. Verstappen was back in the pack for some reason and decided to go long, trying to overtake a McLaren. Hamilton crashed. I think there were a bunch of retirements in the midfield. It was all over the place.
Is that Katch just did the aggressive Google search that I just heard, trying to find out what the results were? Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
I'm trying I remember it. I remember the race, but I don't remember it as well. Maybe there's a reason for that. But
I can't quite remember Singapore, to be honest. But yeah, certainly if I'm all up for a bit of driver bad performances, and certainly for Singapore, that sounds like that was the case. And I think back then, I still am maybe a bit. Go on.
We had the George Russell v Mick Schumacher beef. Russell in a Mercedes, Mick Schumacher in a Haas.
Oh, back then with some Mick Schumacher chaos. Certainly. Do you reckon that's gone on because he's now the Mercedes reserve driver? Do you think they've had to sort out that little scrimmage between the two of them?
I don't think it was ever that deep, surely.
Maybe not, but certainly for Singapore, that was certainly a very memorable race, I think, from that season. Katch, what was yours for 2022?
I went for Brazil and George Russell's first win. I think
Fair
alongside that, wasn't that the one where Kevin Magnussen got pole position? Was it that race?
It was.
Like, come on, having...
Oh, yeah, that was great.
Come in first, and for pole, it's incredible. Like, that is probably his highlight of his career. So I think starting from that, we knew it could be a pretty good race. And Brazil always produces bangers. So seeing George come through, get the first win, many conditions and spins and just all chaos. I think it was... I've gone with that as a good race. Like 2022, the issue for me was that not too many stick out in my mind because we were still kind of recovering from 2021, and then it was the new regulations, and Red Bull were just Red Bulling. So it was never going to be the most incredible season, so there weren't as many big standout races, but for me, Brazil had to have mention.
It probably did feel quite bad at the time because we've been treated to 2021, thinking, how can this get any worse? And then 2023 happened, but we'll move on to that in a minute. We shall, for mine, we've said Silverstone so many times. I've got to go with Silverstone. Yeah. I think the other iconic moment that I can think of is the through goes Hamilton moment, which I think if I remember it, I was coming back from a university open day because, of course, this was when I was looking at universities, and having to balance my laptop on the tray table in the back of my dad's car while screaming as Perez, Leclerc, and Hamilton had that insane fight. It was an incredible race, and that was obviously the main battle, but we had so many battles up and down the grid where it was just so scrappy. And from a season where, as we mentioned, we were recovering from 2021 quite a bit, I think that was Silverstone, again, as I mentioned, can always deliver something. So that, I think that was I did really enjoy that race. And any other honourable mentions that we can think of?
Austria that year was pretty good. It was kind of the rematch of 2019 Austria between Verstappen and Hamilton. Verstappen and Leclerc. And that was, as far as I'm aware, Leclerc's last win that year. And his last win, I think, up to Monaco this year.
Yes.
Was it actually that long of a gap?
Yeah, it was. Because he'd done a lot of pole positions, but he didn't carry them through. So
we'll try not to bring up Leclerc's pole to win conversion. I think that opens another can of worms where we have to talk about Norris's pole to win conversion. I don't think Katch wants to do that.
He's not had enough poles to have that conversation. Wait till he has more poles, then we'll talk.
Okay.
We'll have the Warwick F1 Show pole to win conversion episode coming to you in 2026. But until then, shall we move on to 2023 unless we have anything else to mention from 22? I'll go first on this one. I said Singapore, just because it was, Singapore sticks in my mind because it was that one race where we were like, finally the Red Bulls have had an off day. And as I mentioned, I'm a big Carlos Sainz fan, so it was really nice to see him win. We had so many other moments like Russell dropping it on the last lap as well. And yeah, I think it was the first race where we had a lot of, a bit like we have this season, I suppose, where we have quite a few drivers all in contention for the win, rather than just going into it and thinking, it's going to be another Verstappen win and we know it. And I think that's what made it stand out, certainly from compared to the rest of the races that were on that season. Well, would you agree?
I put Singapore as an honourable mention. I do think having 4 drivers at the end of the race that could have won it, like it being Sainz, Norris, Russell and Hamilton in that order, and then obviously Russell bins it on the final lap. And it was just, I think it was in that period where Verstappen had decided to just not lose, and
that was the only.
Finally, someone else.
I know. It was the only non-Red Bull win of the year. Like, it has to be up there.
Yeah, but to be fair, I have gone for a Verstappen win because I thought a lot of us might say Singapore, so I decided to pick something different.
It's hard not to go for a Verstappen win really in 2023. So I don't blame you. I'll let you. I'll give you a pass on that one. Sorry, go on.
No, I actually went for Las Vegas. I thought Vegas was really entertaining. I mean, we had obviously the issues with practice and all the kind of drama around the drain covers and hitting his car and things like that.
The drain cover, let's go.
And I think after that, there was a lot of trepidation about the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Would it be good? And you know what? It was surprisingly good. Like, there was a battle for the front between Verstappen and Leclerc that kind of got ruined by a safety car, but then you had on the last lap Leclerc overtaking Perez for P2. I think behind them you kind of just, it was a bit more standard, but you had overtaken. I think honestly I'm happy Vegas is on the calendar because the backdrop there, you can't really get much better if you're looking at a street circuit. Like the 2 kilometer straight down the Las Vegas Strip is quite good, and I'm really looking forward to the Vegas Grand Prix this year because if we have 6 drivers that could potentially win it, then it's going to throw up a good race, I think.
To be fair, I think when I went into hearing that Las Vegas was going to be on the calendar, you just think, this is another Abu Dhabi. They go in there, they want the money, they want their big paycheck, and that's the only reason they're going for. But actually, it has whipped up some decent races, I must say. Definitely better than what I thought was going to. Katch, I'm judging by your reaction that you have not chosen Las Vegas for the 2023.
No, I didn't think that was an option.
Just because Norris crashed.
I didn't even know that. That's how much I've forgotten about that race. I think I was annoyed because I remember waking up so early to watch it. I was on holiday with friends and I woke up so early and I was like, this is not worth it. I think Las Vegas conversation needs to be put aside because I have some strong opinions that differ from yours. But
unless it's because Norris lost and you just buried Las Vegas 2023 in the back of your mind.
I was in Budapest with my friends. I had to wake up too goddamn early to watch that race. And it just wasn't... I think the frustration for me about Las Vegas as well, maybe it's a personal issue, but it's now the race that is closest to my birthday, and it's never going to be a good one. And it's never going to be one that I can go to as a birthday race, so that kind of sucks.
I think it will be good this year. I'm willing to take a bet that I think it will be a good race this year.
I think this year might be the only time that I will watch. I mean, if I choose to watch it live, that is, but actually have watched it live because it is a very early race, and maybe that's why I don't remember the Las Vegas races that well because I have had to remind myself of the races from last year for Las Vegas because I don't watch it live. I enjoy a lie-in, so Las Vegas is not for me.
I love a lie-in, but I do wake up for all the early races, so I think that's why some of my opinions. If I have to wake up at 6-7 a.m. for a race, like I loved waking up at 7 a.m. for Australia this year. That was great. If it was an awful race, I would have hated it. So maybe because I watch it all live, it's differs my opinion, and that's a good segue onto Japan being my favorite 2023 race because I remember waking up and it being red flagged as well quite early on, I believe.
Back to bed, wait for another hour.
I had to sleep. I had the commentary on in my ear.
Okay.
I woke up as it was just getting restarted and stuff. And McLaren second and third, Oscar's first proper podium. I loved it. I think it was worth it for me to wake up. I had to put a Suzuka on the list because I love the Suzuka circuit and it has produced a lot of good races. It's produced a lot of mid races, but 2023 for me was one that was good. Like it was wet. There were issues, and for me that's also a good race.
Japan sticks in my mind as kind of one of those tracks where not only is it definitely has the potential to deliver some really entertaining races, but also it really tests the drivers. Yes. It's a bit like Monaco, but if Monaco is entertaining, but certainly yes, Suzuka. I feel like Suzuka's too good of a track to not be mentioned on this. But do we have any honourable mentions?
Oh, Zandvoort. Actually, that's what the rain was carnage.
Fair enough.
It was just fun. It's not Zandvoort is a track I could lose off the F1 calendar and not lose too much sleep about it. But to be fair to it, the rain
quite a tight circuit, isn't it? It's quite narrow. It doesn't seem like it's really bred for F1.
No, I have a few circuits that should disappear.
Yeah,
quickly.
I feel like at some point we need to create our ideal calendar.
I think we did do that.
Yeah, I will contribute my stuff to it because I have some controversials.
In the winter, in between the break, we will do an ideal calendar. Ideal calendar episode coming in 6 months' time.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Can I add a
go
fun
on.
fact? So I feel like for a lot of the listeners and for us, there is one list and one website that kind of summarizes everything, and that's the racefans.net, like top 100 races. It gets updated all the time, and I use this to kind of refresh my memory sometimes, or if I'm bored, what are really good races to rewatch. And from the 2014 to 2023, I kind of counted up what countries come up, and I feel like it'd be interesting for you guys to guess what were the top countries that were featured.
As in like the tracks, so like Britain.
Yeah, the tracks, the countries. Yeah, what
Silverstone's got to be on there.
What range are we talking? Is it like all time, or is it?
No, 2014 to 2023.
Okay.
What were the top rated races, and what countries came up most?
Right, I'm agreeing with
Britain.
Callum. Silverstone has to be on there.
Yeah,
that is up there. There were 5 mentions of it.
What's first? Like which has the most?
This is F1 family fortunes going on right here.
Yeah. How many does the most have?
The most, I'm just double checking. I believe it's 9. So the numbers, unless I'm wrong, it goes 9, 6, 6, 6, 5, 5. Because I put 2 5s. So
Okay.
Britain is one of the 5s.
Brazil is the 9. It has to be.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think the Brazil that wouldn't be on there. Maybe 2015 Brazil. I don't think anything happened there.
Yeah, there was no.
I also was going to say Spa is a track which I really like, but we haven't actually mentioned it really at all.
It's not that good of a racetrack anymore. It's a driver's track.
That's true. That is true.
Right. So we got 2 6s and a 5 left, just to finish it off.
Okay. Hang on, I'm gonna have to look at the.
I'm thinking.
I'm looking at the F1 calendar just to remind me.
I'm gonna say Monza's one of them.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
One of them is, which we've mentioned quite a few times, as a great
Abu Dhabi. That's a joke. That was not serious.
Imagine.
Azerbaijan.
No, Azerbaijan. I don't believe it's top.
Why?
I think I was counting.
No, to be fair, there's only been like 3 good.
Yeah, there's only a couple.
True.
And because it's a newer circuit, it's
Monaco.
In what universe?
No, to be fair, there's been like 2018 Monaco was.
If there was a qualifying page, then it might be Monaco.
Yeah, that's not weird. Okay, I'll give you one.
Hungary's got to be on there.
Hungary is on there, yep.
Okay, which one is that? Is that the 6 or the 5?
That's a 6.
Right,
There's another
okay, so there's less.
What are the other two? We'll finish off.
There's Bahrain.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yep, and Austria.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, Red Bull Ring.
Red Bull Ring about Austria.
Okay, so this is the rated races, and I think Austria's just produced a lot of good races. Like when you get to the bottom of the list, they're about 7.5s out of 10.
Okay.
I think it's a bit. For me, I see Austria a bit like Silverstone, where it never has a really terrible race. It kind of has a baseline of being pretty decent. That's just my opinion.
Right, what Austria? Have you got the Austrias that they've put?
Yes, I can get them. So the Austrias that are put are 2019.
Yeah, that makes sense.
2020.
Yeah, no, definitely.
2018. And 2016.
That was the double Mercedes DNF, but I can't remember anything else apart from that.
And 2018 was when Grosjean got his first good result that year for Haas. I remember it from Drive to Survive.
I wouldn't put it up there. Like it's good.
It's not that up there. It's at 58. So.
Oh, fair. Can you?
Yeah.
I need you to. I need.
Oh, as well. Okay.
Oh.
Oh, we'll go on.
I'm back. No, I need to look at this list and disagree with all of it.
Yeah. Okay, so I think what's interesting, the top one. So I've excluded the ones before 2014, right? So so Brazil 2012 is the top rated one. And then it's Germany 2019.
Yeah.
Then a 2011 race. And so for the top ones from 2014 onwards, Germany 2019, 2014 Canada, 2014 Hungary,
Yes.
2015 Hungary, 2015 US.
I'm surprised 2014 Canada's that high.
Same. That's not one that I thought would be up there, but I guess it's a Ricciardo win, and I believe it's his first win as well, so...
I think there's a little bit of, if it wasn't a Mercedes, it's definitely a good race bias going on there, and that's not necessarily true.
Well, for some it might be.
No, for some.
No,
If
but I think
it's not Hamilton, it's not a good race.
But obviously that's not always the case, but I think it is a bit like, obviously Verstappen is a much worse driver a much worse sportsman compared to Hamilton. But I think it was kind of the case when Mercedes was dominating. People were you always root for the underdog, don't you?
Yeah.
Or at least I do. So it was kind of that case. But it's interesting. We've had a lot of similar racetracks come up, I think. So things like Singapore, Silverstone, Hungary, I think has come up quite a few times. Yeah. And we should definitely do an episode where we create our ideal calendar again. With I know you guys did one a bit earlier in the season when I wasn't on the podcast, but and then a lot of ones that haven't appeared. Obviously, Abu Dhabi is one that I suppose never delivers. Monaco's never on there, unsurprisingly. Miami.
I'm still surprised we haven't mentioned Spa. I don't know.
It's just always it's a driver's track these days. I think we've also been quite unlucky with the weather.
True.
I think it's it's not been variable for a while. It's been wet or dry.
We could say that if we did race there in, what was it, 2019? When was the year that we didn't race there?
Well, we didn't race in 2021.
Or it was called off because of the rain.
Yeah, 21.
Yeah. If it was there in 2021, it would have been the best race of the season, but it was called off before that could happen. That was the reason why.
Yeah.
We can go with that. I have a soft spot in my heart for Spa. It's a great track, but I'm surprised that we haven't. No, it's certainly a very good track to go to and very, very entertaining. But yeah, I think most of the good tracks that we all like and we all know have delivered some great races have definitely been up there. So I think I think we've done quite well there. So does anyone else have any final comments before we round out the episode?
No, I
don't believe so.
You look back and you do think there are some really good races here and there. I think every year we've spoken about at least 3. I think on occasion we do complain a bit too much about a lack of good racing because we get some quite often. Yeah,
we certainly do, and it's definitely been good to have reminiscing about all of the good racing from each of the years, and also soon we'll be able to talk about all of the different races in 2024, which we've had the privilege of watching, of all the different race winners. But until then, that kind of rounds out the episode. We should say that for the summer break as well, we've got plenty of episodes to keep you guys entertained. We have parts 1 and 2 of our season review so far, where we're answering audience questions, and you guys can send in your predictions as well. And then in a few weeks' time, we'll also have a Zandvoort preview coming up for that race in the Netherlands. But until then, thank you very much for Will and Katch for joining me. I've been your host, Callum, and until next time, goodbye.